Okay, good evening and welcome to the July 10th Palmer Town Council meeting. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is visitors' comments. Is there anybody that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda?
Thank you.
Okay, if you want to get up now and do the master plan, yeah.
All right, good evening. Do you all have a copy of the thing?
Yes.
Okay. All right, my name's Tim Chinchiva. I was the chairman of the Master Plan Implementation Committee up until June. I resigned my position because I'm going to be relocating. Go over this real quick. I wanted to clean up what I was doing, and when the new chairman starts, he'll be presenting to you what they were taking over. I just felt it was a responsibility of mine to present to you what I had been done when I was in charge. So, committee was formed in September of 2022, comprised of 7 members. We meet the first and third Wednesday of the month, moving days to accommodate for visitors. As of July 1st, we were at 3 members. The last meeting I attended was in June. I think we were picking up 1, so they were back up to 4 at that point. After multiple town vacancies, the committee believes that a liaison participation is crucial for future success. We lost our liaison to the planning board and we lost our liaison to the town council, so the committee was hoping that maybe some input from you guys in the future would help them move along. Our working goal is to meet with town agencies and find out what they are doing to ensure the town's master plan actions are received and being worked on, and what challenges these entities are dealing with to make implementation accomplished, and report the findings to all of you. Our first few meetings, we were kind of sitting down and we structured out who we wanted to meet with, and the first group we met with was the Historical Commission. We sat down with Steve Nowak and Fran Nowak. Thank you. The Historical Commission is looking for a location of the town's historical items. Currently, they're being displayed at the Palmer Public Library. We felt that was important. You guys interact with all the people in town, and if you ever came with a contact that knew that they had a space that these historical items can be displayed, that you would be the ones to probably make that connection. So that was very important to them. We have boxes and boxes of stuff there in storage, and they'd like to see it on display. They're looking for a matching grant from the Mass Historical Commission to fund survey on the town structures. It's pretty much in the same fashion as the Parks grant was. People wanted to do that to be a matching grant, and they're looking to do that to restructure their all the maps they have of town of where our historical structures are. Little fun fact that we didn't know: all dig safe projects in town that are on town property actually have to go in front of the historical commission. Next, we met with Palmer Recreation Director Andrew St. George. The rec department cares for 6 parks throughout the town: Burley, Depot Village, Bondsville, Three Rivers, Chase, and Converse. At the time of the meeting, he was updating the parks and rec website. He brought in a brochure. It was very, very well done. I don't know how further he got with that, but he was talking about disc golf going to Burley Park. If they purchased that land, he was thinking about doing an 18-hole course. If not, it was going to be a 9-hole course. And he's also interested in starting a summer camp there if there was ever money in the budget to start that up. We brought up the issue of maybe starting a dog park in town, and because of the liability issues, that was something they weren't looking at the moment. We then met with, sent out invitations to all the water departments. We first met with the Palmer Water Department. The superintendent, Chris Conley, came in. Mentioned the department infrastructure was in serious need of upgrades. They manage the risks versus raising water bills. Pretty much what that means is he kind of said that 40% of the Palmer district's water pretty much just seeps into the ground. I'm sure most of you are aware of that, but the infrastructure in the Palmer part of the water department definitely needs upgrading, and that he agrees with it. The Prudential Committee, superintendents, they're all structured differently throughout this town's water departments. They're not interested in raising their rates right now to do that at the moment. You brought up staffing issues. I'm going to bring that up later on. We asked him about consolidation in the future. He's up to doing that. Unfortunately, at the moment right now, the powers that be aren't. And he said that if there was ever a chance of that happening, it would be if the Department of Environmental Protection came in and saw that water was seeping in the ground. They would almost have to be forced to do that to fix the infrastructure. Next, we met with the Three Rivers Water Department. These guys are wonderful. We had the whole board and the superintendent come in. They were working on part of a grant. They received portion of a grant to replace a $1.5 million tank restoration project that they have going on. The Department of Environmental Protection inspects every 3 years. They brought up the staffing issues, same thing as Palmer. What these water departments have to do is each town, because they're separate, they're 4 different water departments, they each have to hire 2 licensed operators. So each town pays, well, there's 8 total licensed operators. If they were to combine, you could save a little money, and there would only have to be 2 licensed operators for the whole town. They were voted the best drinking water in 2007. A lot of us didn't know that. There was an issue with a very small amount of, I think, something in the water that they had to start adding chlorine to. They're hoping the DEP comes back and they don't have to be doing that into the future.
E. coli.
Yeah, E. coli, that's what it was. The department sells water to Capone's Pool Water. I'm sure everyone sees those tanker trucks over by Chudy's. They actually make money off that. They sell them exclusively to them. We asked them about future consolidation. They actually set up a 4-member committee created for feasibility into combining water districts. One of the cons they kind of brought up was they received a small town classification for grants. If they were to combine, they wouldn't receive that anymore. They are definitely open to consolidating, and one thing they were very specific on is they want the terms to be set by you guys, not any other department, not the town manager. They were specifically saying town council sets up parameters. We'd absolutely be willing to sit down and negotiate that. There are a few things in specifically that they are interested in talking about, whether it's combining their facilities, water supplies, that means chlorine, hydrants, meters, office supplies, engineers, I brought that up already, services, equipment. Bondsville and Three Rivers are actually connected by a pipeline. Some more of the cons that they brought up, quarterly billing in Three Rivers and Palmer, they bill monthly. That was something that would have to be worked out if that was ever to happen. Three Rivers actually measures their water in gallons. Palmer measures it in cubic feet, something that's a little different. I actually found out, none of us knew, there's actually a 12-inch water main that comes from the Quabbin. It's located in Bondsville. That's currently not being used. It was created during the construction of the Quabbin due to water being diverted away from town from the Swift River. All of department personnel, whether it was from Palmer or Three Rivers, they agree that this would need to be tapped for any business to come into town, whether it's up on the hill, casino, water park, anything like that. The town's infrastructure, they all said, could not support anything up on that hill in our current state of the way the water systems are set up. So I think it's a resource that definitely should be looked at and tapped into. It's sitting there, it's free. It would just, the infrastructure would need to be updated in order to derive from that. They brought up there's a water ban rule. When a water ban occurs anywhere in Hampden County, the EPA acts on that, and all towns are effective. So if Ludlow has a water ban, that means all of us have a water ban. And they're currently, what they're doing is they're combining to acquire attorney to fight that we shouldn't have to have a water ban if Ludlow or another town in the county does that. I think the willingness to combine is out there. I mean, if these guys are looking to combine to get an attorney to fight something else, I know they can work together. there's a lot, digging down into this, there's a lot of things that are there that aren't there to the public and aren't public knowledge. And after we kind of talked to them, it's not something that can be easily done. But they all agree it needs to be done to ensure that the town grows. We reached out to Bondsville and Thorndike. Both departments were committed and were scheduled to attend a special meeting. We kind of rearranged our schedules and met on like the second Wednesday, and they no-showed. We reached back out to them, and they said that they were going to get them in a future meeting. And the next area of focus they were going to focus on was rail stop support for town. That's all I got. If you have any questions.
Any questions for Tim?
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the work
Thank
that
you, Tim. Yes,
your
you'll be
committees
missed.
put in. I do, right now, so you're missing a liaison from the council, and you're also missing a liaison from the planning board. Okay, and so we'll see what we can do on that. So originally, the committee was 7 members. Okay. And thanks for your work, and good luck in whatever your future brings to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So we have the minutes of May 8th and June 12th. Any comments?
I have no comments.
Do you have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 8th?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain.
I abstain. Wasn't here.
Yep, me neither. I now have the meeting minutes of June 12th.
I had a couple.
Okay.
About halfway down, Eric Duda, Pathfinder Superintendent, where it says, ask for town council's vote of support, should be to acquire, not acquisition, the former Country Bank. And then a little bit farther down, same sort of a paragraph where we took the vote. It says, and pertain to me, Counselor R. Lavoy abstained on school committee at Pathfinder should be more to, as due to being school committee member at Pathfinder or something there that's just a little disjointed.
Also under the vote of support, if you're going to the acquisition word in Eric Duda, it says it in the same thing. It says Pathfinder Vocational Technical High School District to acquire through the purchase. I don't know if that sounds right. If you're going to already wipe out acquisition and change
Well,
it to something else.
No,
They
that-
said change acquisition to
To
acquire.
acquire.
Acquire. Okay.
So it
Yeah.
mirrored
Okay.
that.
So it
Yeah.
lines up. Okay. I'm with you.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
I just wanted to comment, having not been at the meeting, I mean, I will abstain, but I found some of these minutes to be very confusing as to what actually happened, and I didn't have an opportunity to watch the meeting. But like where it says Pathfinder School received 2 grants to use through September 2024. I don't know were those grants to acquire Country Bank? Were those grants for something else? Like, that's not clear to me. So I just thought there was a few examples here where it wasn't quite clear to someone who wasn't at the meeting what exactly, bless you, what exactly was stated and what the comment went with. But any other comments on that? Okay. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Matt, second by Carl. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I
Abstain.
abstain. Okay. Old business? Is there any old business from anyone? Okay. New business. The first item is Leslie Duffy, President, Opakam Land Trust, seeking an amendment for the conservation restriction which was passed by the town council in December of 2021. Welcome.
Hi, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. This is a simple amendment to the conservation restriction that you all passed 18 months ago. because the Opakam Land Trust and Mr. David Nichols of 2 Robinson Road amended the original CR to conform with the requirements of a grant program that allowed Opakam to help conserve land in Hamden, Brimfield, and Southbridge. This CR needs to have an amendment to comply with the newly implemented IRS regulations. It's called a safe harbor amendment. It does not change anything with regard to the allowed uses or the prohibited activities on the property. It's just simply an opportunity for, it's just simply in regard to the IRS laws that have changed. So I need a town council approval of the amendment in order to record it with the original CR at the Registry of Deeds.
Any questions? Okay. We have a motion then to vote to amend the conservation restriction for 2 Robinson Road in accordance with IRS regulations.
I'll make the,
Second.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Bob, second by Matt. Little fighting there.
Ambitious.
Any any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you.
Can I get signatures?
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yep, of course.
I'll set this one over here. This is for the town council. Oops,
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
got it.
And I'll put the one on this one.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And I can just go down to the top.
Cheers, right.
Yes, if you need it notarized or, yeah. Yep,
Thank you.
she should be there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
It has to go all the way around, just the next page.
Okay, yep.
You know, in case we lose one along the way. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Just out of curiosity, in the last 18 months, has there anything been done with the property?
There was some clearing done in an area that is not part of the conservation restriction. Mr. Nichols, I think, intends to live his life at the site.
What page is
Oh,
this?
and the land trust went out and marked the boundaries so that there's public notification that it has a conservation restriction.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Sir.
Town clerk in that direction.
Yep, right in the mezzanine.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Okay, next item is an appointment of Nicholas Zio to the Conservation Commission with a term to expire in 2026. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Jessica, second by Matt. Any discussion? Good? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, Nick.
Thanks,
As
Nick.
always.
Yep.
Thank
Thank you.
Next is appointment of Brenda Mizuski. I'm sorry, yeah, I got the ski right. To the Board of Assessors with a term to expire in 2026.
Make a motion.
Motion by Matt, second by Carl. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, Brenda. Be great to have you. Appreciate it. Okay, next is Wendy Gendron from ARC LLC, approval of Forest Lake Watershed Base Plan. Hi,
Have a few minutes to do a
course.
little intro.
yeah, of
Sure.
course.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give you a brief background on the 604B Forest Lake Water Quality Assessment, as it's been some time since the town received the grant award. The successful application was submitted to Mass DEP by Angela Panacione in 2019 and was later managed by Sarah Fortune during much of the pandemic. In efforts to address the COVID-19 restrictions and delays, a one-year extension was approved by DEP through June 30, 2023. Erin Ruggiano jumped right in the last quarter of 2022, and after her departure and the looming completion deadline, my office took over the management responsibilities in January of 2023. So I'd like to thank all the previous conservation agents for their hard work in bringing us here today, as well as our current agent, Heidi Manarino, for her continued support these last 6 months. I'd also like to thank the Board of Health, whose agents collaborated with us all throughout on the Forest Lake residential septic system mapping component. This presentation tonight is part of the public information and outreach requirements of the grant. As part of this, a sign-in sheet is being circulated. Please let us know you're here, so thank you for signing in. Additionally, if anyone listening tonight would like to be added to this attendance list, has comments or questions, please call my office, 283-2605, or email me, lleduc@townofpalmer.com. So the common denominator throughout this project has been Aquatic Restoration Consultants, LLC, also known as ARC. Wendy Gendron is an aquatic ecologist and certified lake manager. She's been conducting lake and watershed assessments and recommending protection and restoration measures for over 25 years. She assisted the town of Palmer in securing the 604B grant from the Commonwealth to prepare the watershed-based plan for Forest Lake. She joins us this evening to present the results of this effort.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Welcome.
Yes.
Turn this on, right? Fingers crossed.
Looks like it's on.
Okay,
Nighttime.
that's why I printed copies, you never know. Great, so at least folks at home can now see this. Yeah, as Linda mentioned, my name is Wendy Gendron. I own and operate Aquatic Restoration Consulting. Been in this business for a number of years, and I am pleased to present the results of this report here tonight. It is kind of data intense. I'm going to try to over-summarize it, but the report is there at your leisure to read, which has a lot more background on it. So, to begin, you know, the whole intent of a watershed-based plan is to ensure that the water body, which is a body of water for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, maintains its fishing, swimming, and support of aquatic habitat viability for the state. And they issue grants, potential 604B, 319 grants, and other sorts of grants to try to keep these water bodies maintaining their designated uses. So the watershed-based plan was part of the 604B grant, and the plan essentially is to collect information from both the watershed and in-lake to assess the existing conditions, to evaluate those data and develop some nutrient loading estimates, because in lakes we're really concerned with nitrogen and phosphorus, which drives algal control or algal growth, and then that impairs your aesthetics, your fishing, all of the aquatic uses that I've just mentioned. And then using those data to establish some loading thresholds, which would be what the water body can sustain without impairing those uses. And then establish some load reductions that might be necessary to bring your lake back into compliance with those thresholds. And then in the very end is the meat and potatoes of it, which is to provide recommendations for best management practices and implementations of different in-lake and watershed management opportunities. So these could be structural things that the DPW could take on, or they could be homeowner-led efforts and different things to reduce the phosphorus loading to the lake. And then this plan is considered a living document and is supposed to be updated as you acquire new information and as you assess the efficacy of those plans that you've implemented. So if you're putting in a rain garden, you want to know how well is it doing? Is it doing as well as we planned? Well, this plan should be updated on some regular basis. But I think what's most important to the town is that this plan is a springboard for getting additional funding. So you could potentially seek additional grants, maybe to do the same similar exercise with Thompson Lake, or perhaps a 319 grant that will help you implement some of the recommendations that I'm going to go over. So as part of the assessment, we looked at both physical, biological, and chemical factors or variables within the lake and within the watershed. The plan goes through all of the methods and assessments of this, and I won't go through all of that, but again, I want to focus on total phosphorus and bacteria for this presentation, but we do have information on all the other in the report. So why do we care so much about phosphorus? Well, and what are the sources of phosphorus? Phosphorus is everywhere. Phosphorus is in the environment, it's in the air, it's in all of us, and it is an essential nutrient for all life. And more specifically, it is what controls algal growth in freshwater systems. It is the nutrient in the least supply, but is required for algae to grow. And when you have excess phosphorus, you have excess algal growth, and that impairs again, the aesthetics, the habitat for fish. What I've got here, some photographs of an extreme algal bloom in Harvard, Massachusetts. This is a cyanobacteria, and cyanobacteria blooms, they have the potential to produce toxins. You probably heard on the news of harmful algal blooms. That's what they're talking about, the cyanobacteria. They produce toxins that can be as minor as a skin irritant to some severe intestinal issues, and they've been known to potentially kill pets if they're allowed to swim and drink in extreme excessive conditions. What people don't sometimes realize is while a plant does produce oxygen, plants also take up oxygen when they respire. At night, when they're not photosynthesizing, they are taking up oxygen, and that can lead to complete dissolved oxygen loss in the water body, resulting in fish kills. So fish kills can happen both from the oxygen losses also being directly impacted by those toxins that I mentioned. So it's extremely important to focus on phosphorus and reduce the amount of phosphorus that's in your water body. And just a point of interest is in marine systems, you worry about nitrogen. So like down on the Cape, they talk about nitrogen. Here we talk about phosphorus inland. So what is considered an acceptable level? So EPA back in 1986 said that 25 micrograms per liter was generally protective of aquatic resource. Well, in 2021, they just came up with a revised study, and they suggest that that value is only protective about 50% of the time. So that's not very good odds there. So they're now recommending lower site-specific thresholds. The measured concentration in Forest Lake is 31. So let's just sit on that for a second. So thinking through that, you would expect your lake to have some severe algal blooms, but what you do have is excessive rooted plant growth. So we're at a point in the lake where we know we need to reduce the phosphorus in the lake to be protective of the future, and and I'm going to go over this later, but I fear we're potentially at a tipping point, like much of the lakes in the New England district or the New England area, where anything could put us over the edge. The extreme climate conditions can put us over the edge. That lake that I showed you, the extreme bloom, they hadn't had a bloom in 12 years. I mean, they had reduced their phosphorus, and boom, in the last 3 years they've had consistent blooms. So we think that that lake has reached its tipping point, and now that might be its new natural state. And it's really hard to get something out of that realm and go back to a more pristine condition. So on the graphs that I have here, the top one is essentially just the bathymetry of the lake. Over to the right, this is your temperature and dissolved oxygen profiles. I know it's really small, and all I want you to focus on the far left is that blue line. That blue line is your dissolved oxygen as you go deeper in the water. So envision that at the surface you have plenty of oxygen, and then somewhere around 9 to 10 feet, it takes a nosedive, and then there's no oxygen after 10 feet of water. So that is a disturbing condition because much of your lake is 10 feet or greater depth. So that is an indicator that it's setting up a situation where that sediment can also produce phosphorus. It comes out of the sediment, and then not only your watershed is contributing it, but now the lake itself, it's called internal recycling. So that's concerning. Also, if you were a fisherman, you'd be very interested in that, because you know that during that time, you're not going to be finding very many fish down at that depth.
Well, it explains a lot.
What's that?
That explains a lot why I can't catch any fish at a deeper level.
So you want to stay on the edges.
I'm going to spread that around. Don't worry.
And the other thing I found interesting when I went through this is I looked at one of your old reports. I think it was in the 80s. Fuss and O'Neill, I can't remember Cullinan prepared it. And they did a sediment mapping. And you can see the contours there, and there's a significant amount of sediment in your lake, over 25 feet in some areas. So all of that is contributing to this organic enrichment and recycling of phosphorus and detritus. The next thing up is aquatic plants. We look at the aquatic plants. We did a number of points, probably about 90 points in the lake we looked at, and we looked at what species were there, how dense were they, what was the diversity of the plants. We found 4 non-native invasive species. The most disturbing one was fanwort. I have a picture of it later. That is probably Massachusetts' least most wanted plant in the state, because it's very difficult to control. It's native down in Florida, but it has really taken over here in Massachusetts. And it can be resistant to herbicides, and it can grow in waters 12 feet deep. You also have milfoil, which is also an annoyance in a lot of lakes, Eurasian water milfoil, but fanwort I found has actually been able to outcompete Eurasian water milfoil, so that's interesting. But anyway, so the disturbing thing is, while you have a good diversity of native plants, the one plant that's found it's most abundant is fanwort. This may reach a stable state, or you may see the lake getting more and more of this fanwort. And a lot of plants is good, too many plants is not good. It can also impact fish. So fish need that open area to forage and live. While the plants are great for small fish, you might not get a lot of big fish because they don't have areas to go forage for those little fish, because they're in all of those plants, so they can't get in there to forage. So you end up with another imbalance of the lake. You do have, I didn't find it because I didn't do a specific fisheries survey, but you do have a protected fish in your lake. It's called the bridal shiner, which the Mass Fish and Game know about, and the natural heritage folks know about. So it is in there in the lake. So it's really important to make sure this lake stays in balance. And we're at a point where it's okay, but something can kick it over the edge. So again, what I was saying is I want to focus for this discussion about bacteria, because we're all worried about that. You have a swimming beach that's very popular, so we're concerned about bacteria and, again, phosphorus. I don't need to tell you the importance of that anymore. So during the dry and wet weather, so we went out there when the weather was dry, three days, no measurable precipitation, and we sampled in the lake, and then the tributaries, and any runoff. In wet weather, we went out during a rain event, and we did the same at some of the same locations, and we measured for bacteria and phosphorus and the other parameters that I showed you. Both dry weather and wet weather had exceedances of the bacteria Mass Department of Health standards in both fecal coliform as well as E. coli. So that's a little bit concerning, especially at the beach. Obviously, it's worse during rain events. Same with phosphorus. The phosphorus concentration on average, so there was times where it was higher and there's times that were lower, overall was 73 micrograms per liter. So you can imagine, we were talking about 25, now we're seeing 75 come into the lake. What do we do with those data? Well, we know obviously that it's excessive, but then we want to look at like where it's coming from and establish a total budget for the lake. So we have a desktop model called the Lake Loading Response Model, where we use literature-derived export coefficients from different land uses. So residential use, commercial use, forested, there's literature values that know that how much phosphorus comes off those land uses. We look at septic system, thanks to the work that the town did. I was able to get a really good handle on the number of septic systems, the distance from the lake, so we could estimate that. Waterfowl, we just do a rough estimate of how many transient waterfowl and resident waterfowl are visit the lake. And like I mentioned earlier about atmosphere also produces phosphorus, which we have no really control over it. So those are factored in there. And then the watershed, which is primarily what we have a lot of control over, we divided it into 4 different basins. So the Northeast Basin, you're seeing that in that red sliver there. And primarily that's the road runoff from River Street. So that is only coming through during times of precipitation where it's taking all the phosphorus and other materials that have accumulated on the land. It's running down the street. And unfortunately right now it's emptying right into the lake right at the beach. So if that's carrying phosphorus and that's carrying bacteria, you're putting a high load right in the worst area, right at the beach. So if you're swimming the day after a wet weather event, there's a chance that the Mass Department Health standards are getting exceeded on those days. So those are probably the worst days to be there. The good news, which I'll show you later, is we have a solution. And then the East Basin is the area in blue. Most of that area is forested or low impact development. So we're not getting a lot of runoff from, or a lot of loading from there. The unnamed tributary basin, that's that big peach colored. It's also on the pie graph as green. I probably should have colored them the same. But we didn't subdivide that. That could be further subdivided and you could collect additional information on that and really pinpoint where some problems are. 2 things that jump out to me in that watershed is Thompson Lake. So we don't know what's coming out of Thompson Lake specifically, but their watershed, it would be interesting to see what their loading analysis is. And you have a fish hatchery, which it's good in that they've protected a lot of lands from development because of that. The unfortunate part of it is to feed fish and grow fish, you need to feed them. And the feed creates phosphorus, and then there's excrement from the fish, and all of that creates a load. Just like wildlife, actually. There's a number of beaver out there, a lot of wildlife, which is great, but they also produce bacteria and phosphorus loaded in the lake. So if I wanted to focus on further study, I'd take a look more and drill down a little bit more in that watershed. And that happens to be the highest contributor of phosphorus to the lake. So we're looking at 178 kilograms per year, or about 70% of the total load. And then the West Basin is over where there's a little bit of residential development. This is where the septic systems are, and some shoreline development. And it's small, so it's producing very little. But anyway, so that is what we've estimated as the total load for the lake. And what do we do with that? We use that same model once it's been calibrated. And we have on this graphic, we have the existing conditions, which I just showed you, and pre-development conditions. And pre-development conditions is we take that whole watershed and we revert in the spreadsheet all of this land back to forested conditions and pretend humans weren't even here. What would the natural loading, background loading be of the lake? So we would go from a total load of 254 all the way down to 97. And what the model tells you is it'll also predict what the in-lake phosphorus concentrations would be. Right now we're seeing about 35 on average. If this was all reverted back to forested land, the best you could get was about 13 micrograms in the lake, which is great. You probably wouldn't see any algal growth for that, but it's unrealistic, right? We're not going to move everybody out of the watershed, and the reason why we're here is we enjoy the lake, right? So if we look at EPA's target, I have that under the next column. So the best you'd get is 25. We already know that that's probably higher. And then I have a column of what would it take to hit that target. And so I have some potential load reductions for each of the items on there. But we already know that's kind of a goal that we probably could get, but it's best to focus something lower. So I'm suggesting a protective target of 20 micrograms per liter. And what will it take to get there? Well, if you just look at the higher percentages, the watershed load is where it comes from, 46%. While you might look at the internal load that I talked a lot about, and say, well, there's 50, you could get 50% there, but it's 50% of 7 kilograms per year, which really isn't enough. So that's why you gotta also just look at the numbers and not just the percentages. So now I'll show you so how are we gonna get there? How are we gonna get to these load reductions? Well, when I told you that the River Street stormwater drainage is potentially the lowest hanging fruit, and we have a potential solution for it. And thankfully, the state may have come up with a solution for us, and we have very little expenditures to see the solution in its completion if we can get the state to agree. So they moved the boat ramp, which was a good idea because that other ramp was continually being eroded and getting ripped up with the stormwater coming down River Street. They moved the ramp, or they acquired the land and built this ramp. They also included a bioretention basin when they constructed that. And a bioretention basin is an area to capture stormwater and infiltrate it. When you infiltrate water, phosphorus doesn't travel very far from where it goes into the ground. Nitrogen does, but phosphorus gets taken up by plants, it gets attached to soil, so it doesn't go anywhere. So that is the best solution, is that you can infiltrate water. That is the best way to prevent phosphorus from entering the lake. Well, this is right, hopefully you've all seen this, but this is right near the end or the downslope of River Street, and there's a potential to capture that stormwater and drain it into here. And that would be a huge solution for the River Street issue. But you do need the buy-in from the state, and then who maintains it, you're going to have to negotiate all of that. But that is a potential solution to get that drainage away from the beach. The next one is similar. So even though that River Street drains to the east of the beach, it also continues to flow a portion of it and drains just to the west of the beach. And it drains right into the lake. It'd be great if you could capture that water and put it downstream of Forest Lake into this water body here that no one really uses for recreation. And they don't use it for recreation because it's full of plants. So if you could redirect that stormwater there, that'd be great. This would be an expensive solution because it would either require rerouting of catch basins or resloping River Street. So you may want to only consider this when you're doing some other improvement plans in the area. And then the other area that is privately owned, so you have limited ability to impact this, but you could entice the owners with grants and help them along, is the Forest Lake Road. It's a dirt road, if you don't know about it, and it's steeply sloped, and water, as you see the pictures there, just comes flowing down from this street, and it carries with it a lot of solids, a lot of phosphorus, some bacteria as it moves through the forest. And while it drains into the forest before it gets to the lake, there's very little ability of it to infiltrate. So it goes as sheet flow, as we say, right into the lake. So two things. One, they could maintain that road, regrade it, incorporate some capture solutions in there. And two, there's a potential of creating some capture and infiltration somewhere where that photograph is. But again, you know, it's not town land, so it would take some negotiating. Other things that are not structural solutions are education, outreach, and public assistance. We're starting some of that tonight. Explain to individual homeowners that they have an investment here to protect the lake, even if they don't live on the lake, that all of their actions have some impact in the watershed. And homeowners can do rain gardens, capture their roof runoff and reuse it on their property. Again, the key is to infiltrate as much of this water as possible. There's also the septic systems, with the town is working with the locals to ensure that they get them inspected and replaced and maintained as necessary. Other things the town has influence on are bylaws and ordinance and land protection. So I encourage the town to, within this lens of this lake and other water bodies, to look at your bylaws and ordinances. Do you have enough legislation to restrict use or actually encourage low-impact development? Do you have ability to purchase land or land that is already open space or protected, such as the state property? If they were ever to sell their land, certainly you don't want to see that go to a developer, because that's going to increase your impervious surface and create more phosphorus. So if there's any negotiation to get a first refusal right to buy, or encourage them to put it an easement in perpetuity for protection, I don't know what their deed says, but perhaps that's something that the town can start negotiating with the state for. I mentioned the low impact development and phosphorus capture. Again, the plan is, the watershed plan is a living document. You're supposed to monitor, you're supposed to update the plan and seek funding. The two areas that I would like to see more research is that watershed and the runoff or the impacts of the fish hatchery. And again, use this as a springboard for other state grants. The 319, another 604B, there's some land assistant grants, there's septic assistance, there's a lot of grants out there, and this is like the document that you have EPA state money to produce, so you have a vested interest now and can show that. So in summary, I don't want to want everyone to be scared and walk out here with sad face, but the current conditions are desirable. You know, based on the site visits, it's a beautiful lake. It's nice and clear. It's got acceptable water clarity for fishing. It's free from harmful algal blooms. You have a great diversity of habitat. Your shoreline and watershed is primarily undeveloped. So those are all the good news. Some of the major threats, again, the bacteria at the beach, the excessive rooted plants. Right now they're in a good balance. You get about less than 50% coverage, but the non-native plants scare me a little bit, including the fanwort. And there's the picture of fanwort. That mat of the other plant is a native pondweed, and then that bright green plant is fanwort. And one of the things that we noticed when we went on our site visit was that new boat launch. It doesn't have their kiosk, their informational kiosk, has no information about the transport of plants. Whether it's non-native or regular plants, it is illegal in Massachusetts to transport plants on your boat, on your fishing gear, on your trailer. And you can be fined heavily for it. And most public launches have some signage that says, inspect your boat, pull your plants off. Not only do you not want to bring them in, but you don't want to bring them somewhere else. So I don't know what Lake Thompson looks like, but if Lake Thompson doesn't have some of these invasives, you don't want that lake to get infected by people going from Forest Lake up to Thompson Lake. And then the last thing is, the continued excessive loading that we're currently seeing in the watershed. I already mentioned the developed land. That graphic on the bottom shows the percent impervious surface and its effects that it has on stream health, which can be correlated with lake health. So as you have more impervious surface in your watershed, you decrease the stream health. And so right now you're sitting at between 5 and 10%. You're on the downslope. So if you start converting some of these open lands into paved and you don't do anything to control the phosphorus, you're going to move up to the right on that curve, and you're going to have decreasing habitat. Again, I talked a little bit about the tipping point, but what's great is we're all here today, and the town is taking actions to improve conditions, and the site walks we went on, the people seem very excited, the DPW and others, to start implementing some solutions. So I know it's a lot, and I know I talk fast, but that's essentially all I got, and I'll open it up for questions.
So the main tributary is on the back side, right? If you're looking at the beach, that's where it's fed, right?
The main tributary is that wetland complex to the south of the lake. Let's see, where was I? That, I don't know if I can point.
The next one up, I think it is.
So, okay, so here's the lake. This is the main tributary. It's an unnamed tributary. There's no name in it. And here's Thompson Lake. That is the main, what we call a perennial stream that's always flowing. This stream that comes in here, I believe that's intermittent. I'm not sure if that is perennial. And then those are the only two. You're nodding for perennial.
What we talked about is actually both of the lakes connected on the rear.
That's right, yep. And then, so those are the two surface waters draining into the lake. Everything else is groundwater or overland flow from stormwater.
Got it. So there's some groundwater also, so spring
yeah.
fed in.
Yeah, it's so hard, like,
Right.
everyone always says, oh, this is a great lake, not saying this one, but I hear that all the time, spring fed. Well, you don't really know unless you,
Right.
how you determine that is you gotta look at water temperatures and you try to find that cold water spring. Groundwater itself is not considered spring fed, it's more of a seeping of the water. So groundwater and springs are a little bit different. There's definitely a lot of groundwater feeding in. Whether or not the lake has physical springs, that I don't know.
Just curious. And then the other question I had was, isn't this more of a compounding problem? So you're talking about moving the runoff, right, from flowing into Forest Lake to flowing into the smaller pond on the other side of the road there, but then everything flows into the Ware River. So if you're adding that extra runoff into the small pond or just continuing runoff into Forest Lake, doesn't that just compound and end up somewhere downstream?
It does. It's a great question because it already does, right? So whether it sits in Forest Lake and gets attenuated, and when I say attenuated, meaning the lake itself will take some phosphorus and sediment out of it before it discharges. The issue with right where these 2 points are the lake is coming in, it's already circumventing any attenuation that Forest Lake would give it. Because, where's the graphic I'm looking for? Because it's so close to the outlet. The outlet is right here, right? So the water's coming in over here from, I'm just talking about the storm water that we talked about. It's coming in here, it's going past this beach. Chances are it's not circulating and going back through here. But you are correct, you are rerouting a potential problem downstream. The other part of it is that I'll call it, dare I say, a sacrificial pond, that the one immediately downstream, I don't know why I can't find my graphics that I'm looking for. It's in the solution. This one,
Yeah, that one.
maybe you'd want to look at the retention, the amount of time that water that enters there, how long it stays there. But that plant biomass will function like a emergent wetland. So hopefully you're getting some attenuation out of it. But you're absolutely right. Anytime the whole problem, right? The reason why we have storm drains draining into a body of water is we're trying to take the flooding. We didn't care about water quality back in the day. We're just taking the water quantity and trying to dump it into a surface water, right? So just get it out as fast as possible. And the same can be said about the phosphorus. So it is a concern, and I agree with you. There is some risk to that. So the best thing is to control the source, to control the phosphorus at the source it's generated, and not let it convert to runoff, entering any water body and infiltrate.
And for the people at home, it's not like taking care of a swimming pool, right? You just can't go out there and put chemicals in and just say, all right, the problem's fixed.
No, the only thing you can do, so say you didn't have, we know the watershed is a problem. We know that it's generating a lot of phosphorus. Say you had a kettle hole, right? A kettle hole pond has a very low, small watershed, not a lot draining to it. It's basically leftover glacial water. You can have internal loading that all your phosphorus is coming from the sediment. And when you have a reduction in oxygen, like I showed you, we call it anoxic conditions. When that happens, phosphorus that it loves to bind with iron, which is naturally occurring in our sediments in Massachusetts and it gets released. So that bond between iron and phosphorus under anoxic conditions, they separate. So iron no longer holds that phosphorus, and then that phosphorus becomes available for algal growth. You can add what's called alum, which is aluminum sulfate, which when that phosphorus gets released, aluminum also likes to bind with phosphorus. So aluminum will take the place of the binding of iron, but aluminum will not let go of that phosphorus under anoxic conditions. So then it just becomes inert into the sediment. So there is a chemical that you can put in to control internal loading. You can't do it here. Well, you could, but that's not going to last very long because you have all these inputs just continuing to come in.
And that's an expensive
It is.
solution.
Yes, it is a,
That's when you get a 319 grant.
yes. The other thing, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
there is a lake in Wellesley that I work on. The watershed for this lake is in Natick, but their pond is in Wellesley, so they have no control over what's coming into their lake, right? Even though they do their best to negotiate, why is Natick going to spend money to protect Wellesley's resource when their water body is only open to Wellesley?
Well, like that's basically like DEP exists for Long Island Sound.
Yeah, yeah. So that chemical that I told you about, alum, you can use it in a stream dosing situation. So you can have it, so you have, picture like a hose that have all these injection points. You put that across the stream, and as it rains, and you have it triggered so that when the water level comes up, the system kicks on and dispenses that alum slowly into the, so it's binding that phosphorus before it gets to the lake. It's expensive. A lot of maintenance. I think they spend $50,000 a year on that. But they've seen significant improvements in their water quality. So that's the only time that I really see a chemical impacting phosphorus concentrations.
And my last question is, why Forest Lake? Was it just because it was the only publicly accessed lake in town?
I don't know. Angela,
So the reason, because it's public access, it's a great pond, it was eligible for the 604B grant. And because it's an impaired body, and this is going way outside of my realm of, but it's on an
Plants,
impaired, yeah, it's impaired on a certain list. So that also kind of triggered the reason to apply for the grant.
I was just curious. I mean, I know we have other bodies of water in town. I'm just curious of why
Yeah,
Forest Lake.
Because it's public access.
Got it. Okay.
So I have a question about that, though. So who actually owns Forest Lake? And, you know, I know there's a public beach, but it's not the town's public beach, right? It's
It's the state now.
the state now.
State owns it now with an agreement. I'm not sure where that went with the town, but there was supposed to be a management agreement.
I got it in
with the
my
state.
office somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, but the state owns it now. They bought it from the private owner,
Yeah.
all that land.
Karen's, I think. I think so.
They bought
I think
the
so.
beach?
Sounds about right.
What's the state own, the lake or the beachfront?
The state owns all the land, the beachfront, and then all the land on the east side, is that?
Yeah. If you're staying on the beach, all the stuff to the left where they built the boat ramp.
I don't know who owns the lake, but the lake has a public, it's
Is it- yeah,
designated
they have
as a
it
great
fenced off.
pond, so it has to have public access, which then makes it eligible for certain state funding and federal funding opportunities.
So I guess my question is, just having some familiarity about, you know, like public beach areas, right? I know like water has to be tested, so when you were talking like that bacteria on the beach, like in other communities, when there's the weekly testing that happens of the beach water, and then if it raises to a certain level, then they have to close the beach. I'm just wondering, like, does that happen here? Like, who's responsible for that? And then your other comment regarding like that the launch should have, you know, rules on cleaning your boat so you're not transferring. Is that up to the town to do that, or is that up to the state to do it because that's their launch? Like, I guess I'm just, and maybe there's no answers for that tonight, but I think that those things are important for us to know, because,
Follow up. Right.
well, yeah, and I mean, I think, again, the bacteria on the beach is obviously a big thing, but I don't think it's the town's responsibility to do that.
so I don't know what happened with the land acquisition trading here, but if it's a town, there is clearly a responsibility. And if you Google the Mass Department of Public Health and bacteria testing, they outline exactly what's required and the frequency and who's required. There is like quasi or semi-public, which maybe this could be considered that, where it's like informal, but you know a lot of people do it, and if the town had money, perhaps they would, you know, the public health, they would sample. But I don't really know the specifics of it. You don't really have like a official, well, now, I don't know, the state taking ownership perhaps And if they're marketing or advertising it as a public area, they should probably be responsible for that sampling. And then with the signage, it's definitely something the town should say, like, your folks are the ones that use the lake the most. It's right in your town. I would approach them and say, at a minimum, I want signage. Some lakes have gone as far as putting in boat washes, and I don't think you're necessarily there. If you did not have any non-native plants in the lake, I'd be a little bit more aggressive with that, because at some point the damage is done. But you don't want someone getting it from forest and bringing it somewhere else.
Right, and then when you're saying, Thompson Lake, are we talking Lake Thompson? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, I'm just making sure that there's
And
not.
I didn't realize that was not, a
It's not public.
No, it's
lake.
private.
Yeah, I don't think there's any public access.
There
to
is
Lake
not,
Thompson.
less that I know, right.
Right.
Okay,
But like the Quabbin, I mean, if you buy a boat and you go on the Quabbin, that's it. Your boat can only go on the Quabbin.
And when we were there that day, we saw pieces of the invasives, just little pieces of it, where a boat had come out and obviously left. So it's there, it's probably leaving the lake.
right, and then my last question was, so, like, Lake Thompson, like, they have to, or a lot of lakes have to actually do sampling and do certain things every single year to keep up with the regulations of making sure they're maintaining their beach and doing everything, which is, again, quite costly. So I guess that's why my question of who actually owns the lake, like, is part of it owned by, residents that are on the lake, that have homes there?
It depends. So you mentioned that it's a great pond. What a great pond means, it's naturally occurring as 10 acres or more. And then if someone put a dam on it, even though they've expanded that surface area to 45 acres or whatever, it's still considered a great pond because it was naturally 10 acres. I don't know the details of Thompson, but like, I live on a lake in Ashburnham, and our lake is completely created. They dammed up a river, it was a emergent wetland, and now it's a lake. Our association owns the land underwater, so we are entirely responsible for the dam, everything that happens underneath the water. I don't know about the other ones. So there's a mix. Sometimes the town owns the land underneath, and the state often claims responsibility in terms of it's a water resource of the Commonwealth responsibility, not necessarily that they're going to do sampling and testing, but they'll, there's that. So I can't really answer that. Some research would be needed to do in the land.
Barbara, according to our GIS, which of course
just
is
did
like
the same thing.
might not be totally accurate, the lake, Forest Lake, is owned by the Commonwealth. So is the abutting property where all of the beach and the boat launches and whatnot. And then Lake Thompson is owned by Lake Thompson Civic Association.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have their HOA.
They
and
currently
whatnot.
have an order of conditions with the Conservation Commission where they have to do the treating, and they have to have and that does come out of the association's
Correct.
pocket.
Right.
And the difference is that's a private lake that does not have access to these grant funds that a public access lake does. So for Forest Lake, completing this exercise then allows the town, if we wanted, to look into the 319 and other funding sources that could help mitigate and enforce these recommendations.
And if you look at the
Property card on there
yeah,
too,
well, I'm looking at a number of property cards that lead from Lake Thompson to Forest Lake, and the majority of these parcels where you can see like the stream flowing towards Forest Lake, they're all owned by the Commonwealth or the
fishing
town.
game. Yeah.
The town owns, Burley Park is part of the parcel that like it flows through, so it's a lot of public land that
A
goes.
lot of that is the
fish
hatchery,
yeah.
hatchery
Yeah.
management.
Yes.
So that could be it right there, like you said. That could be a number one source that we could probably talk to the state about. If they decrease their phosphorus coming out,
Well,
then,
and we reach out to them, but because they have a weight, they don't exceed a certain weight threshold on their fish, they're not required to collect data. So we did reach out for water quality data leaving the hatchery, and they didn't have any. So it would be further investigation.
Right, I mean, if you get other grant funds or town, you could go out and sample immediately downstream and upstream and do your own investigation. And then say, not to be confrontational, but like, hey, look, did you know? Maybe there's something we can partner with and
Right.
try to get these numbers down.
and since their name is on it, maybe they'll have vested interest in it.
Well, and since they, well, I guess it might be a different faction within the Commonwealth, but they just invested a lot of money in a boat launch, and protecting the lake wouldn't protect that
Yeah,
investment.
the co-owner on the property card is Department of Fish and Game, so.
Yeah, it was,
Well,
it
and
was
they
definitely, it
also-
was Fish and Game, because
Yeah.
that's,
They did their
Terry
assessment.
Smith, thank you. I can-
Last year, they did the assessment to identify the species of,
Bridal shiner.
species of special concern. Is that what it is?
I can't recall if it's special concern. or
Anyway, it's
threatened.
a species under the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program that is living in this lake. That is another reason that we would want to make sure that the habitat is not declining anymore where that shiner is like, I'm out.
Yeah, I think for me, I would really like an answer as to if if we're testing the beach, the public beach. I think that's really important, and if we're not, then I think there should be signage that says that.
Yeah, but I'd be curious too on Pat Aquatic across the way, because Pat Aquatic Pond is right on the other side over at the camp. And I know the kids swim there and everything. The summer camp across the way.
Yeah.
Right. That's just about the size of Forest Lake, maybe a little
But
smaller.
like she's saying, that was if Forest Lake is a great pond, that has one set of rules. If that's a lake owned by Camp Rama, then
Which
they
it
might
is.
have, right, so
Yeah,
they might have
under their
other rules
camp.
where they
Right.
actually have to test it because it's but
Right.
it's not a public beach though, it's a private, I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think it gets a little interesting in that the state now owns the beach, and where does that management plan, where does that, what is the language in there?
We'd have to look at probably the documentation that Ryan has, just to make sure that we aren't liable
Well,
to make
yeah,
sure.
probably not, but it is the state. Trying to make them do something is,
Okay. Anybody else?
Trivia question, yes. Why do they put the lake in front of the name and then after the name? It's just the people that named it?
Yeah, exactly. I get that question a lot. Why are some lakes a lake and some are ponds? And
Well, that's
people
the
would
size.
also say like, well, it's the size, and it's not. There's many ponds that are actually bigger than some places that are named lakes.
Whatever they named
And
it.
it's usually the governing name is on USGS quad sheets, so that is the official, whatever's listed there. And you can petition to get that changed, but it's a process.
Anybody else?
Whoever showed up first got to put their flag on it.
Yeah, that's
This is what
right,
it
like
is.
everything.
Okay, well, Wendy, thank you. Linda, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
yeah.
It's not no, it's not a public hearing. Sorry.
There's, so,
You can,
I
you can
had
talk
said
to.
earlier, if you have questions or you want to be added to the sign-in sheet, email me or call my office. I'm happy to connect you with whatever information you'll be seeking.
I just figured this is a public meeting pertaining to what. you're
Right, but
discussing.
there's other alternatives for having questions answered, and that's by contacting the town planner.
What's the purpose of the meeting if you can't ask a question when all the subjects are here? Makes no sense.
If you want to go out in the hall and ask your question in the hall, that's absolutely fine.
Kidding.
No, I'm not. I'm not. It's not a public hearing for this tonight. I'm sorry.
What is it? These people are here.
They gave a presentation, and if you want to have your question answered, they will be happy to answer in the hall.
Well, I think the people should be able to hear this too.
Okay, well, we're going to move on. I'm sorry.
Okay, well,
Okay?
maybe it's time, contact the Attorney General's office and, exactly how you're running these meetings.
Okay, you can do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Next item is department head report for Bonnie Weeks, building inspector. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie.
So I apologize for not getting these reports out to you sooner. But here's the copies. This is the monthly report for June and our report on our NICE committee actions.
Whenever you want to start is fine.
So in June, we received 115 permit applications. That includes demolition, building, electrical, gas, and plumbing. The total estimated cost provided from the applicants is $953,413.27. The monthly fees that we took in is $12,301.43. We had $500 worth of waived fees. That was for 3 permits that the town obtained. We are still doing a lot of commercial work. We've got ongoing jobs still at the industrial park and in downtown Palmer. We have 5 houses going at this point. In addition to the permits that we took in, Bill is currently working on looking into the removal of 3 unsafe structures. We've listed 501 River Street, 9 French Drive, and 1573 North Main. 9 French Drive has sold, and it's going to be rebuilt, so that is no longer on this list. That just took place in the last week. Or the sale is going through this week, but we were notified last week. So we will be looking at another one that's on the list for the NICE committee to add to this demo list, so that we'll still have estimates on 3. 74 Ruggles Street had work going on without permits. They were sent a letter and they have now secured the appropriate permits and are working, and we still have 1 property that was posted as unsafe. And we're hoping that soon we can be able to handle that one onto Allen Street.
Talk about any of the work that Bay State Hospital's doing.
So Bay State Hospital has done a portion of the 2nd floor of the addition is now a cardio unit. That one just received its occupancy permit. A portion of the old emergency area is being turned into radiology. They are almost complete there. There is another portion of that of the old emergency unit they have just applied for that complements the radiology. So that one just came in last week. They have completed work in the basement in the adjacent building, and that was finished about a month and a half ago. And so they're still looking to expand further into the 2nd floor, but at this point, that's still not decided fully.
Question on that, though. So the $953,000 worth of estimated value, how much of that is related to the hospital? And the reason I'm asking that is just because that would be a tax exempt project. So I'm just wondering what, and maybe going forward, you could break out like tax exempt versus actual, future taxable growth.
Okay, we can look at doing that. Like I said, the most recent hospital one came in this month, and I believe most of the others in here are not the hospital.
I was just trying to find it quickly, but,
Those have been ongoing for a couple of months now.
so they're not in that 953?
I do not believe they're in this 953.
So I had that quick question on your report. The cost is the average cost or the estimated cost of the project?
That's the estimated cost of the project.
And then the fees are what we as a town collected on that.
Correct.
So in the month of June alone, which is what this report is, almost $1 million in upgrades or repairs were done in town. And then we collected almost a little over $12,000 in fees.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a lot in a month.
It's been busy.
I can tell.
So-
I'm sorry, do those also carry forward, though, or are those unique just to the month of June?
This
Or
is just the month of June.
So new stuff taken out in June?
Yes, applied for in June.
Was it
Yes.
January or February we did 10 million?
It was, I believe, January.
So in January we had 10 million in estimated construction value, and in that we brought in something like 98,000 in fees.
Yes.
So I joke around all the time that you're the only one working here late. You're always here. Looking at this, it seems like there's a ton of work. How are you keeping up?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah. Besides living here most of the time.
But it is, yes, and as far as to follow
Right.
up on that, getting permits issued in a timely, has that been an
Right.
issue? Because I know we've provided you other staff, so we could use the feedback as to how that's helping you if it is.
First of all, I have to say I have an excellent assistant in Emily. She works very hard. She gets most of this stuff into the computer on her own because I'm out doing inspections and reviewing plans and that type of thing. Very lucky to have her. She's always trying to learn. She's always doing more. She's very good at sending out emails and requests on items that are missing and putting everything together even before it hits my desk. But it does mean that there are some delays. I mean, Bill helps, but that wasn't Bill's focus when he was hired. He works very hard at the zoning and enforcement side. He's very good at that. We've cleaned up a lot of properties, and he tries very hard to keep that moving and continuing. He does help out when we get backed up.
Good.
So both of them are excellent helpers. It can seem overwhelming at times, especially when you get a month with a lot of permits that come in. Some of the permits are fairly simple. Roofing, siding, windows. There's minimal information that you need for those, and we have it set up in a way that those can go out really quickly. That's why you'll see them listed separately in this, because we know what they are, we know what we're looking for. If everything's in order, I can sign them and let them go. The ones that become more complicated are restaurants. They involve a lot of different code, and it all has to mesh together in the end.
Right.
Same thing with a lot of the hospitals, the industrial parks. You're working with fire, you're working with health. There's a conservation, there's a lot of intermingled and overlapping codes. Luckily, the departments all work pretty well together on that. But there's still, each of us has our own focus that we have to deal with. Those are more time consuming, and they do take longer to get through them, especially when you get a series of them that come in at the same time, and you're always trying to prioritize. And if you get distracted from working on a plan review like that, it becomes more difficult, because when you go back, you have to do the review before you start again. But that's where I'm lucky with the staff that I have. They do help to give me more time.
Honestly.
And that's why you see me working late, because I'm less likely to get interrupted.
No, I know that you're always here, and I know that you take your job very seriously, so I thank you for that job ethic and that work ethic that you have. We want to make sure, as a council, I'm just looking to see, there's a lot here, so, I mean, are you drowning?
Not yet.
All right.
I'm getting close to treading water, but I'm not drowning.
Okay.
All right.
On the, I'll ask, because Matt usually, so I'll ask. On the Pink House, it's been several months where we've been waiting on DEP to do the final testing to close that out. Just wondering, when was the last time DEP was notified for a status update on when they could do that?
So they have been out a few times. They've gone back and done more cleaning, but with all the rain and stuff, we've had stuff rising up to the top, and they have to go back and clean.
Gotcha.
So they are now working on a plan if this next test does not come back the way we want, on what the next steps would have to be.
Okay.
Will that be at the town's expense at this point? Whatever further cleanup it is? I mean, I know the town paid to take it down. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know how much more money the town has put into the testing and the DEP and all that stuff, the removal of all the products from the property. I remember that was all special. It had to get shipped to New York.
Yes, I don't believe at this point there's been an extra cost.
Okay. No, I'm just curious if
Yeah.
there was an additional remediation to be done, would it be at the cost of the town?
That is something we'd have to look at.
Okay. I know that the property is currently overgrown, and you can barely see the cellar hole, which is a hazard.
But there's still fencing around it,
There
right?
is definitely
Yes.
still fencing around it. Yeah, it does look secure, but just saying that the property is getting overgrown, so. Tenzers. What's the latest on that? Do you have an update on
I
Tenzers?
have not heard from them in probably 4 months.
They have permits, right? They're still working?
I do not know.
Okay. No, I'm just curious. Just
They haven't
everybody
called-
asks me when's Tenzar is going to open.
They haven't contacted me.
Okay.
The last time they contacted me, we were working out what needed to be done for electrical. They did get an electrician in who pulled a permit, but I haven't heard from them since.
Okay. No, just curious.
I had a question about the mill on Church Street. Has Bill been able to go out and look at that structure that's kind of swallowing itself into its cellar hole?
Yes, so we did get out and look at it. It does appear that it's not structural,
Okay.
the way the building is constructed, that it's more of a false wall to look,
Okay.
but we are working with them on it.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody else?
Noticing that probably half of this is an antenna and solar.
There are 2 large solar
Out of
projects,
that
and
953.
Wow.
That's pretty close. At least a third.
I have a quick question, and I know Linda's still here, and this is kind of related. It's a solar question. Of the large PV projects in town, how many do we have that are constructed that are not online? Do you know that off the top of your head?
2
Just 2
that are not online.
that are completely built, not online. Okay.
with-
Okay.
The 2 that are under construction are the ones that are not online.
Right, but everything that's been built has been put online, because I remember there was a point within the last few years where they were built, but they couldn't be put online because of infrastructure. There was reasons because.
That was probably when the ISO was being
No, just curious, that's all, yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know, they have been too.
Palmer still leads the state, right, in solar? Large PV?
We have,
It's a good state, I mean, it's a good thing to be, I
Yeah,
guess, right?
we have 14 of them. 14.
Large PV?
Anybody else for Bonnie?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Informative stuff.
Hopefully you get to go home on time tonight.
8 o'clock.
It's already 8 o'clock.
We cut into her
Welcome.
work.
Hey,
Wow.
catnap?
Yeah, right. Working for a living.
Dedication.
Did you stop by the clerk's office?
What?
Did you stop by the clerk's office?
She's gone.
They're long gone.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Need to get sworn in.
I swear.
I guess you can't,
Whatever.
I guess you can't vote.
You've been
then.
notified.
Yeah. Your votes don't count tonight.
It never
Okay,
does.
next is citizen zoning petition request for amendment to zoning additional cannabis retail. This is to be forwarded to the planning board.
Yeah, so this was the meeting, I guess, when you weren't here, we
Yeah.
accidentally forwarded it to the subcommittee
Subcommittee.
instead of back to the planning board.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it's past the 14 days anyways, so I think automatically, this is just kind of a
Revert.
perfunctory thing anyways.
Correct.
Because it's just.
Are we in trouble
automatically-
because of it, Linda?
It needs to be referred back to the planning board, whether the 14 days is passed or not.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Oh, yeah, no, we're
Yeah,
doing it
we're
right
gonna
now,
do
yeah.
that Okay. is there
I make
mo-
a motion.
Motion by Matt, second by
Okay.
Carl. Any discussion?
No, not
All
at
in
this point.
favor of referral back to the planning board?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
That was easy.
Thanks for sitting,
Yeah,
yeah,
right?
sorry.
For that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got 30 seconds in the
We'll,
comfortable
we'll,
chair.
we'll see you when it gets referred
can
back
stay.
to us.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too, thanks.
Okay. Next is motion to petition the general court for a special act for 1 on-premise and 3 off-premise alcohol licenses.
I had questions on this.
Yeah. So these are site-specific,
Yes.
which they need to be, because the last time we had tried to do this, Rep. Smola had said that in order to get additional licenses, they had to be site-specific. You couldn't
Right.
just ask for.
I think that we
Correct.
did try that, right?
did,
We did
and-
vote and we
and-
said we wanted 2 additional
Yes.
just to hold on to in case somebody
Yes.
needed them, and they were like, no.
Right.
Yep.
And
That was
then-
my question.
Yep, and then it does say within the resolution, I did see where it, let's see. So it's on section 1, 1 license for the sale of all alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises to tables at the farm located at 3092 Palmer Street, and 2 additional licenses for the sale of all alcohol beverages not to be drunk on premises pursuant to section 15 of said chapter 138, section 1, to Luke's located at 1478 North Main Street, and 1 located at 1043 Thorndike Street in the Palmer Plaza. So that's the specificness
Yes.
that is needed.
Section 1, paragraph A.
Well, it says 1 located in the Palmer Plaza, but it doesn't say specifically what
Business.
business it is.
No, but it could only be in the plaza, so business to be determined,
Okay.
I would say. And I
Is that,
Where
is that Big
Shimura's
Y?
was?
think- Isn't that gonna be?
No,
I
Palmer,
think so.
Isn't that the new?
I thought that's the.
No,
I think
that's-
that's Liberty Plaza.
that's Liberty
Plaza's
Plaza, the
the
new
new
plaza. Where's Palmer Plaza?
That's where
The old-
Bruce's is, I believe.
No, that's
right?
Pioneer
Oh,
Plaza.
that's
Oh, that's right.
Pioneer.
The old
Yeah.
Big Y? I know, I'm gonna
That's
say the
Depot
old Big
Plaza.
Y. Oh, that's Depot?
Plaza,
Oh.
right.
I don't know where Palmer Plaza.
And 43 Thorndike
Is it
Street.
called Pride? Pride and Walgreens?
Same one I just said.
Oh, yeah, Pride and
Well,
Walgreens,
what
yes.
business is it that's
Okay.
wanting it there?
The one that used to be Cricket.
Walgreens.
Walgreens?
It is a liquor store. They want to be a package store.
Oh,
Who's in there?
So is there something there now?
I don't think there is anything.
Where is
there
this? In there? Are we talking about what used to be Cricket?
Yes, next
In
to
the
Rite
very
Aid.
in the corner.
Walgreens is what I'm
Yeah, in the
assuming.
very
Walgreens,
corner.
right? Yes.
wasn't that like a chicken place a long time ago?
No, it was
Chicken
Cricket.
coop,
The
that's
chicken
where-
coop? Yeah.
That's where Roadside is right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
maybe
on the
that's
front.
it.
This is
Yeah, okay.
level with Walgreens.
Yeah,
here
in that
the
corner.
Well, who's asking for this additional license?
The landlord, Matthew Watsky.
But I thought it had to be.
Like a specific business.
I was thinking it was the new business near Big Y.
Right, that would have been Pioneer, that would have been Liberty.
Liberty Plaza.
So they're trying to apply for a license for a business that doesn't exist.
That doesn't
It's
make,
a tenant, the way it was explained to me, and this is obviously draft language that could be changed. I reached out as they reached out to me, and I asked for a specific business name, and they have not reached back to me with their potential tenant. He
Is
has
there a-
not gotten back to me with his potential tenant.
So is there a vacancy right now in that plaza?
yes.
Yeah, it's a vacant space. There's nothing in there.
I think there's more than one because also the bank left.
Correct. But that's a separate
That's a
structure.
separate
on that
structure,
front,
yeah.
but- So wouldn't they need to come in front of us and kind of give us a plan of what their intent is?
I think that's for the liquor commission, not for us.
Okay, but, yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Is it a cart before the horse, or is it me? I mean,
I-
how can you apply for, we're gonna hopefully get a tenant that wants a liquor license, so we're gonna try to get it now?
To make your property more marketable?
Correct.
Right.
Right.
That's not what its intent, though, I don't think.
How it works.
No, it's, like I said, it's
Well,
kind of the
if they're
cart before
trying,
the horse.
if they're trying to entice someone to rent that space, and the person they're trying to entice needs a liquor license, then
Well,
they're
that's
not gonna.
different.
Well, it's not
If
on-site
it's-
consumption anyway, it's off-site, so it has to be a liquor store or a package store.
Right.
Correct. But then wouldn't that kind of be written into the potential lease agreement where they're saying, if you can help us secure a license, we'll be glad to open a package store in your space?
Could be.
Well, that
Again-
reminds me too, aren't we limited to the amount of package stores we have in town?
That's
Like,
what
I
this
thought there was a limit.
legislation.
Well, that's what this
Right.
would
That's
be an
what this
exemption
legislation
to.
is adding on to
To
that,
add another liquor store?
but only specific to those locations.
Right, it's site specific, so it could only be in that.
Well, Luke's is just amending theirs. They have one. They just can't, they're
Yeah.
seasonal and they want a full time. I know
thought-
that.
I thought theirs was
No,
beer and
theirs
wine
is,
only.
Beer and wine, yeah.
well, the other
Oh,
one-
they actually got a seasonal. They sell liquor, but they're not allowed to
But-
sell it from a certain
Right.
time to a certain
Yeah, it's-
time.
right.
After Labor Day to,
So they want,
yeah, it's weird.
March or
Yeah.
something.
yeah, okay, you're right, I misunderstood.
Yes.
Season. That's some crazy shit.
I know, I didn't knew they had a
True,
seasonal
though.
liquor license. I know. I asked
It's
questions.
true.
It is, but yeah, I don't know
All the
personally.
seasons are good, they get shitty.
Well,
Good thing you're not sworn in yet.
We could amend this to just do the two that we know, we have information on. And then when we get more information,
Yeah,
then
I'm
go for the
inclined to do
third.
that.
Is this a package deal? How many times are we allowed to do this?
We can, my understanding is if there's an economic development possibility, then it can be brought forward. But it just can't be, like I said, just random blanket
Feels random.
numbers.
This
Well, that's
one
what-
feels random.
Well, that's what I'm
Third
saying,
one,
so if we
yeah.
just
So
drop
we'll
that one
do
and
the
do
two.
the other two, do the one for tables and the one for Luke.
Yeah, I'd be fine with
Correct.
that. The Plaza guy's been difficult to deal with. A couple months ago, he had all these answers, and now he doesn't. So
He's
I'm
a
not really
fisherman.
sure.
Yeah, cool.
He's fishing
Fine.
in deep water without oxygen.
Oh, you
So you're
watched
watching the meeting.
Hey, well, I was having supper.
10 feet down, Phil? Okay.
Let's focus.
So,
Phosphorus.
all right, so do we,
You vote on the two, or does this have to come back?
we didn't do a motion yet, did I?
Yes.
I love it.
Right, I'm asking her. Okay, so do we want to have a motion that amends what's before us?
Yes.
Does someone want
Yes.
to make that motion?
Which
I'll
means
make
for the two
motion.
places?
I can't make a motion, you?
I don't know, I don't believe so.
I would say probably
You're
not. You're not
You're
sworn
not
in.
official, you probably shouldn't even be sitting at the table,
For
but,
the two places?
Already.
No,
Get
don't
me a
leave.
Jindal burger.
no, you sit here, you can't vote.
Let's move this along.
Yep, I'm trying.
Not you.
Carl made the motion.
Yeah, is it for the two people?
It will be
For the
for
two, not for the
tables
third.
and
Not
Luke's.
for the third, okay,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep.
I'll make the
Motion
motion.
by-
I was supposed to do
motion
that
by-
after I got
Second.
elected.
By
right?
Carl.
I'll second.
Yes.
Second by Mark, he beat you.
The beer and-
Sorry, I gotta have
As long as
one.
we're moving forward.
Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You just will note that Phil's not a voting member tonight. Okay, thank you. Okay, next is motion to approve the proposed 2% COLA increase for retirees in the Hampden County Retirement Board system as a one-time retroactive payment for fiscal year 2023.
I thought it was 5%.
So it's an additional 2%, but it's not a one-time payment.
Right.
It's a increase on the first 16,000.
18,000? No, 16,000?
it's
I thought it was
16.
18,000.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm looking for
it's
it.
because I read the 18,000 because 50% of the retirees make less than 18,000.
Okay.
That's where that number
So
came
it,
from.
so it's not a one-time thing, it's to increase the amount that they receive a COLA on each year up to the first 16,000.
Yep.
Okay, everybody clear on that?
Are we binded to that?
So the.
So no matter what we do, they already voted on it, right? So we have to.
So it is the 18,000.
Is it 18?
Yeah, it's
It says
right.
it in the second, the Siegel letter.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
I'm seeing
Okay.
it too.
So is it going from 16 to 18, maybe?
It says with the current base of 18,000.
Right.
So, so the Hampden Regional Retirement Board would have voted to offer this, and then the majority of communities,
2/3.
Have approved.
oh, is it 2/3? Okay, so
Yeah.
2/3 need to approve.
There's only been
And-
one so far that hasn't approved
There's
it.
only been one so far that, on this
We haven't
list.
voted, it looks like.
We have
Correct.
not voted, so
There's a
that's
few
what
of
we're
them that
doing.
haven't.
Well, that was as of June 14th.
Right, so
Right.
a month ago.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing tonight.
Sure.
Agawam, Blandford.
So it seems
Chester.
like a mute point, even if we voted it down, it's still gonna go through because it looks like 2/3 is already there.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, but I also think that we should,
Go on
Al-
record.
Always
we should go on,
voice
I
your
think we should go
opinion.
on record, yeah.
Yes.
Whether
Even
you think
though-
your vote's getting shot down or not, even though I can't, I would say, I can apply my opinion. If that's how you feel, then that's how you should vote,
Well, I think
whether you think you're gonna win or not.
I agree. Well, I agree with Barbara that like we should go on the record with our opinion, but it does say in the letter that Hampden County Regional Retirement Board met by the end of June to, ratify the other cities and towns' votes.
Right,
Because this vote should have been done before June 23rd.
correct.
So I think for being put on the record for the council and any retirees who may be watching, we should go on the record.
Okay.
Is there a, like a financial forecast on what this is going to, how this is going to impact our assessment?
Yep.
I asked for that, and all I got was there's no impact until the 2030s. They didn't provide me any greater specificity than that.
So an increase of 2% doesn't correlate to a financial impact? To me, it seems like a financial impact of 2%.
I know in Worcester County,
Well, no, because it's split up between them all. They're showing what, it's going from 415 to 421 unfunded liability by, 5 mil, right?
I thought it starts in, it's either 2020.
25.
Yeah, 25 or 26, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
I know
there's,
in Worcester County, which I would assume it's a uniform across all of the regional retirement boards, that the financial impact hits on FY '25 or FY '26, one of those
Probably
two.
not going up no more than we've raised their taxes.
I just think it would be nice to know.
Same.
Give and take.
Take.
But it does take it out to the extreme of saying the 2036 payment for this increase will not exceed the 3.75% scheduled payment. So it does kind of put a cap on it for 2036.
Big gap between now and 2036.
Agreed, but none of us will be sitting here, more than likely.
2036?
Maybe one exception.
I'll be haunting you.
Youngin.
okay. I mean, I know there was Worcester Regional had put out a,
Formula?
yeah, there was a formula based on, so you get like your assessment with like all the calculations of like how many retirees, and then there's, if you have that, there's a formula as to what the cost is, so, I mean, I don't know what that is, but it would be nice to have it. I mean, if you can get that sheet of paper, I can get you the formula, because it's gonna be the same for every,
All right, I'll ask them again.
well, you should have gotten it as part of the assessment that you just paid for July 1st.
Okay, I'll look for that.
did I do a motion? No. Is there a motion? No. Motion to approve or disapprove?
I make a motion to accept the additional 2% increase.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So in your packets, we have the town council rules. I know we haven't, it's been a couple years since we've looked at it, so if everybody could just look at them, and if you have any suggested changes, you can get them to me, and we'll just review, if there's anything to change, we'll talk about it in August, if I don't hear from anybody.
Right, so just table it until, I motion to table the approval till August. Can I do that?
Yeah, no.
You can't.
You can't,
You're
but
not here.
that's what we're gonna do.
I'm going home.
Okay?
Thanks for the suggestion.
We didn't cover the zoning.
Yeah, that's what I would
adaptation
suggest,
and
is
how
table
work
it.
With planning board, that was up
You guys
front.
are lucky.
That
That was
was the
just the
rules, so that
rules.
we followed them this time.
Yeah,
Up here?
Yeah.
because you weren't at the last meeting,
That
but
was
Ah,
I didn't follow the rules.
gotcha. Sorry.
I made up my own rules for that meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Subcommittee reports? Anyone?
No.
Town managers report?
Thank you very much, Madam President. So the Three Rivers Chambers Commerce Food Truck Farmers Farmers and Artisans Markets Festival will be this Friday, July 14th, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. We will also be doing the ribbon cutting for the new playground at Hernevitz Park. Folks that go down to the park and enjoy the gazebo, hopefully you've noticed that it's been refurbished, it's been repainted, new railings, and then the floor was power washed to remove any tags or graffiti. So very pleased to be able to clean up the park and the gazebo, and I look forward to everybody coming down there on Friday for the Chambers event.
Has the fencing been removed at this point?
No.
No, tomorrow. I already talked to John. Yeah, tomorrow morning, first thing.
Beyond
John
heavy
said.
rain today.
But yeah, I think that's a.
That's right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it correct that the reason the fencing stayed up is to allow the grass to? Yeah,
Grow.
okay,
Yeah, we had.
They did a hydro seeding,
okay.
and the hydro seeding needs so many hours and so many days to work,
Well, it
'Cause I
definitely
know-
got enough hydro.
Sure did. It's a foot and a half.
I know that was one of the questions, and so it wasn't just to keep the kids away, it was for the grass to take root and grow.
also the rubber too, there's rubber mulch material, so that material there, the rubber is kind of cured.
Okay.
But it's all cured now.
I spoke to John before the meeting too, and he said that the contractor is going to mow within the fence area and then do the first mowing, and then it's going to be on the town to take care of the rest of the common and get it all cleaned up. So,
We're gonna street sweep and everything, so we're trying to,
nice.
best we can, as long as the weather's cooperative.
Hey, I hear you.
Can only, right.
Yeah.
The filming of the movie Barron's Cove at Converse has ended, and we were thanked by the Commonwealth's film office for allowing that to happen. Every time a community works with a filming agency and it goes positively, it increases the likelihood that Hollywood will work with the Commonwealth. We have some complete streets projects that are going to be coming up. So the intersection of Converse Street and Walnut Street, the intersection of Central Street and Park Street, and the intersection of Walnut Street and Pleasant Street are going to be included for new accessibility compliant ramps at each corner, pavement markings, and signage. So that's the next on our effort to further complete streets projects. Let's see. Something else. Oh yeah, Duke. So coming up, this is going to be a decision that we're going to have to look into. The irrigation system that is around the inner field. So when we originally talked about the Duke Track project, it was a larger project and we were going to put in synthetic turf field. So we didn't really think much about the irrigation system. but we're not putting in the turf field, at least in this phase of this project. And the irrigation system needs to be replaced. The pump works, but the infrastructure around it. So that can either be abandoned, we can replace the damaged portions, or we can replace the entire system, not the pump and the well. Those are working adequately. So again, that's something we have to look into for that project.
So the turf's not going in this year?
No, the turf is not. It's just resurfacing and getting the track
Oh, right,
to be able to be
right,
used.
yeah.
Bonnie already talked about the nice stuff.
Well, so hold on, so,
So we have to come up with the cost. and-
well, so I have a couple, so I feel like that it was very clear that we weren't doing the turf.
I just forgot.
No, I'm not talking about you. And so I'm wondering, why Ty and Bond didn't have that on their radar. And I remember clearly walking all those times that we walked the project, talking about that there was irrigation on that field. And so I'm a bit concerned that
Yeah, the boxes
now
are up
it's,
there.
yeah, but now, I remember talking to them about it. And, and we did talk about the fact that we could not afford to do the turf this go around. So I don't understand, how nobody knew that. And then I also know that, and I know it was before COVID, but there was a whole issue with confusion as to whether there was actually a irrigation system up on that field. And I remember, Dave Hansel did speak to people about that. This, again, it was before COVID, but, so I don't know, do you know if that irrigation system has even been used?
Because that field holds a lot of water, and so when we run the sprinkler system, it's just too much. So we just don't.
Problem solved.
But
wait a
no,
second here.
because that's not true, though.
The new possible turf coming in, the new drainage system being installed, I mean, it's a whole different.
Right.
Right, but there were issues back a while ago with that. They were using the irrigation system, because I remember that we got it repaired because there was issues with the grass area, and there was a lot of concern for the soccer up there. So I don't see, and yeah, the whole idea of the drainage project is to remedy the water situation. So. We were told that drainage system would be able to fix it on the upper field where where the track will be and where they play soccer, but that there was no guarantees that doing drainage on the lower fields would fix the problem. So I don't see how we don't fix the irrigation system if we're putting in such an expensive track. We don't want the middle of it to be
Garbage.
dirt, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Right,
I agree.
right.
If anything, though, at this point in time, can't we put in, so I know they're tearing up the track, right? They're gonna put the new track in, and we don't wanna mess with the track after it's done, so why can't we put the connection into the field and then worry about the irrigation at a later time?
It's already there.
No, it says it need to be replaced.
It says it can be replace damaged portions of it
Right.
along the sidelines.
Well, that's my question, is what's not working? Is it the irrigation that's across the field?
So let me get you some more information.
Yeah.
Let me get you some more
I
information.
agree.
Yeah, like how much does it cost to fix it versus how much it costs to replace it?
25,000 to fix it.
No, that was the full replacement, 25K.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's
Right.
not,
Repair cost versus replacement cost.
25K is not the
Just the
pump and
line.
everything.
For the
That's just the
well.
lines.
Right.
Yeah. Which the pump doesn't need to be
Probably the-
replaced.
Right.
Or the well.
heads.
Let me
Right,
get
but-
you some more information.
Right, but what I'm saying is short term though, while they're putting in the track though, we don't want to disturb the track after that work is done. So if we have to temporarily put the line under the track, then we should do that while the project's going on. Okay. Right, before we have to affect the, right.
Right.
At least get it to that, and then, right.
I would quite frankly want it done correctly.
At the
all
same time.
All at once.
Right.
Never mind putting duct tape on it.
Yes.
And
Right.
then
Oh,
down the
no,
road
it's
say,
agreed.
well, now, like you're saying, that, irrigation system, they can bore through there or whatever, but you would think you're doing all of this work that you would just
Do it right. I agree
do
with
it
you.
right the first time, so now half a year goes by, oh, well, geez, yeah,
Now, my grandparents had a sprinkler system, and there's a lot of work at the beginning and the end of the season to make sure that it winterizes and everything like that.
Right.
Now, that should definitely be negotiated with the new MOU with the school, whether the DPW is going to handle it or if the schools are going to handle that.
School doesn't pay for the track maintenance, why would they take care of the irrigation?
That's true, too.
We usually hire one contractor and do everything.
Okay, so
whoever
perfect.
puts the
Yeah.
system in probably would be.
I just want to make sure that what we do and spend the money on is being taken care of, that we're just keeping up
Probably
with.
why it doesn't work now.
That's exactly why, because the track is unusable and nobody's been using it.
Well, you hire, you guys don't do that yourself. You hire somebody to come in and,
Some of it,
Yeah.
there's some other stuff we gotta
no, the winterizing it.
look at.
You,
He just said they have one contractor go around.
oh, you do that? Okay. Yeah, so then, next question is, we don't meet again for a month, so what does that do with the
Timeline.
timeline of the project?
Right, are they gonna be already in within a month where we can't do anything under the, you know what I mean? It makes it more difficult.
Or
Yeah, I'll get you an answer tomorrow.
if that's the case, do we just have one quick meeting
Yes, we do.
beforehand?
Yes.
That's just a suggestion, not a
Yeah.
vote or motion.
No.
nothing.
And yeah, right?
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, I think we need to move on this so that we don't have,
I agree.
Agreed.
okay, continue, sorry.
Oh, I'm good. I'm all set.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah. I mean, unless you guys have questions.
Yeah, I had a question about the, towards the beginning of the report, it says that the Thorndike Mill owners have some last minute requests about
Yes.
staging.
Yeah, I saw
What are
that.
their requests and what's the,
Oh, I was there.
Yeah. So yeah, these guys, and it's not just us. They're also messing with the railroad work as well. So they kick anybody that comes on their property in an orange vest off. They try to get people to sign non-disclosure agreements. But what they're specifically doing to us is and let me preface this by saying we've been communicating with them for months, if not over a year. And part of that has been to use their parking lots as staging areas.
Across the street.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm talking the very last minute, all of a sudden, they came out and they said, nobody's going to use any of this stuff until we see all your insurances. Again, they started talking about non-disclosure agreements. So we've had a series of conference calls. We had one on Friday. We had one on this morning. And all the insurance information has been provided to their attorney. Their attorney reviewed it all this weekend. He just drafted up some release document. And I believe Roach signed that this morning. I'm going to confirm that because I don't know 100%. But I know Roach was okay with the document.
Is this affecting our schedule?
Yeah, we've lost a week easily.
'Cause we
I
just,
think-
we just worked there the other day. The company I work for, APMI.
Right.
And we tore up all the asphalt between the tracks and the railroad. Tore out some tracks, put new stuff in, but I didn't get to hear it or whatever. I was sitting across the street with the truck and trailer, but from what they were all, you guys are gonna be. You got the roof part there where they used to unload trains there, and they got that. As soon as you turn down there, you got that little
Right.
parking lot. That
Yeah.
parking lot hasn't been nothing done to it
No, it's
since
all
I can remember
overgrown.
as a
There's
kid. That was
truck
our
in
bus
there.
stop right there,
Yeah.
and they're all worried about everybody destroying. You had Rail Works' pickup trucks in there. It was just all pretty much a bunch of pickup trucks
Right.
and
Do they
stuff,
own that
and they
too?
were. Actually, I thought Diamond National
I thought
owned it
that
at
too,
one point because, like I said, the rail cars would come in, Diamond National would come over, unload the rail cars from that parking lot, and bring the big bales of paper.
I honestly thought there was a business
over
still in there.
But I'm sure maybe they ended up, purchasing it, whatever. But yeah, that's the scuttlebutt I got from the rail people and, our company, and is, they just, I don't know why they're being the way they are, but they're not being very nice. And I seen a delivery guy come there, and he had to go into that parking lot because he couldn't go over the tracks, because obviously we had excavator on the tracks and stuff, so they couldn't access going into the building for however long. And they're just not enjoying it. And I think they enjoyed it too long of not having the bridge open or something. I don't know. But they're not being very,
That's interesting.
very neighborly.
But from what I understand, I think we are good to go. I'm going to confirm that. But I don't believe there's anything outstanding for us in terms of what they were asking for.
I think it's just interesting considering like some of the questionable practices that go on at the mill. Like I'm pretty sure they're living there, so that's definitely not zoned for residential for them to be living on that property. So I just think that it's just questionable.
That's the non-disclosure they want to sign.
Maybe, but I just think it's questionable on their part to be giving such a hard time when they probably don't follow all the rules either. But that's my 2 cents.
I just had a question, not really a
With
question,
inflation.
but on
A couple bucks nowadays.
on the rec stuff.
Okay.
I know it was mentioned again tonight too about the disc golf or frisbee, whatever.
Yep.
Do we have a plan? Does Andrew have a plan yet for what he's like overall for Burley, and he wants to have the camps and?
Yeah, we're finishing that. We don't have that finished yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Soon.
Hopefully September.
Can I ask something, or if you're done?
No, go
Did you
ahead.
get sworn in?
This is more of a safety issue that was brought to my attention. It's probably more like the state road. It's near Northern Tree, Girly Grill. The sewer drains, they're supposed to be going, I would believe, this way, so bicycles can't get caught in it. And there's one of the covers that is turned the wrong way. And a bicycle, Pat Landers brought it to my attention. He almost went butt over bandwagon. And
Where is it located?
it's right near Northern Tree, maybe across from the Girly Grill there, somewhere along that line right there. One of the greats there. Yeah, state, but I don't know. Yeah, thanks. That's what.
Sewer
Because
cover.
he almost like wiped out bad.
Oh, it's.
Yeah, it was
instead of
going the
being
wrong
opposite
way. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
I think that's all I had for now. I had other stuff, but I lost it.
Sorry.
Welcome to my age.
Okay, so I think the big takeaway here on the report is that we need clarification on the irrigation ASAP.
Yep.
And because this also says Mountain View will continue with their work over the weekend and will leave the irrigation system exposed after they complete the drainage system. So,
Yeah, they're not going to button it up. I've already talked to them about it. I said I needed to review it. They were okay. They can work around it. We're good.
yeah, I just want to make sure we're not,
Impeding anything.
yeah,
Wait, it's one of the
project being completed. Okay. Any other questions on Ryan's report?
No.
Miscellaneous correspondence?
That's it.
I do. I don't know if they came in or not, because I wasn't here. Stop sign
It's the glass
at
right there. Show 'em the stuff in the back.
downtown Palmer, what is it, Central,
There used to be a bar.
and the street that goes down to the fire station there. That area.
Walnut?
Right. Central Walnut. Lady had called and just complaining that they constantly run the stop sign.
I think this is where we're doing the complete streets. And that's how she's going to get the lit up stop sign.
She was asking to have a flashing stop sign put there.
Yep. She called. I
Did
talked
she?
to her.
What
Okay.
intersection is this?
Central and Walnut? I think.
I believe
pretty
that's
much.
where we're doing a complete streets.
Yes.
So she's gonna get her sign when that
It's not
project's
Three
over.
Rivers, you're good, man.
No, thanks.
And the other one was, I know we have nothing to do with, and we don't own them, is the Palmer Water Department. All the people complaining about the water. As counselors, I think our voices should augment their voices of saying something needs to be done. You know, I've gone and even looked, this lady filled her pool, and the thing looked greener than Forest Lake spots by the time she was done filling the pool. And I know we can't control them, but as counselors, I feel that there's got to be something that we can do to help. It's just gotten out of hand. Their water is terrible. Nobody should have to put up with that.
Well, we heard tonight that
Where's
they
that,
lost,
Phil?
they're losing 40%. We heard that tonight from a
Right.
report.
Which I think we knew.
Unaccountable water?
Yeah.
You're saying, yeah.
Knew that.
40%.
You're only supposed to have so much, so they've got a massive leak somewhere if they're losing 40% and uncountable, because I know from being on the water, there's only, I forget what the limit is of uncountable water.
Not 40.
but-
40.
No, 40%. I heard it was
Little high.
50 actually,
So she
but.
didn't mention the
I
Board
heard
of
that was
Health.
Thorndike, 50%.
But the point I was making is, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it, people complaining about, and, you know, I'm sure they've reached out to the water department, and I'm sure they've hit rock walls, but as counselors, I think hopefully that there's something somehow that we can put pressure on them to get, you know, it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I think there's a couple, because I get the same thing, right?
Right.
And I communicate with folks about the separation, and I think one is there's an issue where people just don't know that the water districts are not under our purview.
Right.
Not to discount the fact that we should probably put pressure on them.
Right.
But I think historically, Barbara, you might be able to account for this. Like, how do they receive any pressure from the council? They probably
I
don't.
think you'd have to go to the state directly.
Well, I think Wendy said something about the Board of Health could get involved tonight, right?
That was on the.
I don't
meeting.
know, that's why I just wanted to bring it up and,
On the,
you know.
we'll just, yeah, but if that's also, she mentioned, she was talking about the 40%.
Yes. Water
Because
retention.
they're pretty much ruled by the state, you know, they have to have their water tested,
Chinchilla
blah,
said
blah,
that
blah,
40%.
but there's obviously
Oh,
something.
it was
Oh, yeah,
Chinchilla,
yeah,
yep. Yeah.
He said Board
I-
of Health, that's right, that's right.
I don't disagree with you at all. It is very frustrating to see
I
the
wouldn't be paying my
comments
bill, quite frankly.
and kind of to feel helpless to help these people. And the other thing he said tonight, which I was surprised by, was that they don't want to raise the rates, so they're not addressing things. I don't understand
That
that.
is
Right, because they're gonna need
fundamentally.
the rates
So-
to improve the infrastructure.
Right. So when I've met with both Three Rivers recently and with Palmer, and I've been talking with Chris Connolly at Palmer more recently about another project in town. But so Palmer's water district has no operations and maintenance plan. Nothing.
Right.
No capital
I think-
plan, no
well,
operations.
Right, and this, yeah.
Right. And it's the same. I mean, and Nicole, who's the superintendent for Three Rivers, again, it's a challenge.
Well, they had a
Right.
capital plan in Three
So-
Rivers because they had to.
Yeah,
'cause
they're
the
further
DEP
along. They're further along than Palmer.
Right, because the DEP came in and they got fined and there were issues and we
Right.
had to add the chlorine to the
That's-
water.
that's
and
who
then,
you
But
would have to stick
everything
on.
that we're doing with the wastewater treatment plant, that intensive capital plan to maintain that incredibly important and incredibly expensive facility is why, you know, we raise the rates every year. We still have the lowest rates for sewer in the region, but they're going up every year to pay for that plant. The water district is not doing that.
Right. And I think from like a financial management standpoint, we all get the reports from the DOR when they certify their free cash or whatever it's called for the water district. And like Bondsville's wasn't certified until last Wednesday for FY
but
23.
they're not even anywhere near the levels of Bondsville, Three Rivers and
Well, Thorndike hasn't at all. So I mean, I think there's a lot of concern about one, the quality of the water that people drink, I think first and foremost, that's what people care about when they turn their faucet on. They want to be able to have good drinking water, clean drinking water, and know that the infrastructure is taken care of. But too, like, that requires a financial plan, right? Like, you can't take care of infrastructure without a plan that is backed up by a solid financial management, practices, policies, procedures, all of those things. So I have a lot of concerns.
Right.
Yeah, they at least need to
Technically,
find the problem.
They're not even supposed to, let's say, with free cash, whatever, they're not supposed to show a profit. If they do show a profit, that is supposed to go back to the taxpayers.
But the problem is,
They can
right,
build free cash and stabilization, but if somehow they show that they're making profit,
but
that
that's
has to go back to.
Well, I think
that's
have
the issue.
Dornick
Phil.
rules.
Right,
Yeah,
but
but
that's the
there's-
issue is that the water and the fire are one entity. They're the district. So the district
No, the
is
fire
what's getting
and water are separate.
not
Not
on the
for-
district
They have to
level.
be separate.
Right. They are, but
On
at a
paper.
but on a district level, when they certify the free cash,
Yep.
the free cash gets put into the district budget because there's a district budget, a fire budget, and a
Right.
water budget.
Exactly.
Right,
That's
but
what
the
I'm saying.
district is
fire
getting all the money.
The fire money and the water money have to show different bookkeeping.
Correct.
They're separate.
Yep.
They have to be separate.
Yep, but all that free cash though goes back to the district. Right. It's
Right,
not
but there's-
earmarked.
But even if they have,
Anyways,
even if you have free cash, though, the capital needs are so much greater than
what they have
what the free
certified.
cash
So if
is
you
that
have a
you can.
plan, you can use it. But anyways, we're kind of straying. I feel that from the issue of they got less than quality. You wouldn't drink, you probably wouldn't rinse your boots in some of the water that
Well,
you
I
see
think
come
that
out
we
of their
could, I think we
faucets.
could attempt to have a meeting with them to talk about it and see if they're willing to come in and talk, so that we can understand what's going on.
I just
think
wanted
that-
people to know
Yeah.
that we're with them and that they shouldn't, you know.
I mean, I think the bigger question that I see is, everyone's talks about that we should consolidate the water departments and bring it under the town's umbrella. I don't see how you do that when you have such astronomical expenses
Right.
to get everything back under control, so, but.
I think you could have one water district, and then if they did combine, now being just one total water district, they can apply and get better grant money versus being individuals. The old schoolboy attitude of, back when I was a kid, you didn't have to leave your village for nothing. We had Bobby Lords, the haircut guy, you had your food downtown, you had everything. You had the gas station, but them days are long gone and that attitude needs to change and,
All right, so is everyone in agreement that Ryan should reach out to them and see if they're willing to come to a special meeting if they're willing to?
Like a working meeting,
Okay.
maybe.
I agree,
Do
but I'm
that,
not
Ryan?
voting.
Palmer, right?
Yeah,
I don't think we need everybody.
No,
Oh, I think we need everybody.
we could start with
Start with
Palmer.
one,
Okay.
Let's start with one.
the brownest.
Did you have,
Go from like the worst to the
did you have something else? Or you good?
Yeah, I forgot to ask earlier. So I know the filming's done at Converse, like we haven't really talked about that in a while.
Okay.
I know there are estimates out there, like where do we land on that? We just have
I'm sorry, what's the
what
question?
to do with Converse, right? So we have demolition, we have rehab, we have
Yeah, so I had the demolition associated building records go through. We have a tentative estimate of about 1.3, but a lot of that is contingent upon the hazardous materials. So I started a company going through on the hazardous materials. They did all the surface level testing that they can do, but for demolition, they're actually going to need to put some holes in some walls and in the roof. So I stopped all that during the movie filming because they wouldn't jive. So I'd like to get the environmental company back in there to finish their testing, and then that will have the updated estimate for demolition. I'm putting the finishing touches on a request for proposals for a health and wellness center. So this would be a private party that would either look to purchase or lease. I actually have it written as a lease. So they would be responsible for full build out of the site and operations of the site, and we would just be a lesser.
That's after, like, no building? That's after demolition? Or
No. I mean, so that's something that I think should be a discussion. Right now I have it written as of them rehabbing that building. I'll be honest with you, I'm not certain that anything other than housing would ever really want to try to rehab that building. I don't see housing as a possibility because we run into all the same parking and land restrictions. So I'd like to write it in there for this health and wellness center that if it is the most conducive as a pad-ready site for new construction, that's a possibility as well. But they'd be on the hook to demo the building.
I like that.
What happens if we just put an RFP out there just wide open and see what we get?
Just all uses?
Well, besides the fields, obviously, but just for the building itself.
But we'd want all uses for profit.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just kind of curious on who would be interested in that building.
Yeah, I mean, I've never written sort of a general all-purpose.
No, I'm just curious. I don't know if that's even legit. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you advertise it under 30B Section 16, and you get an applicant that's responsive and responsible, and you like what their proposal is, it's up to the council.
I mean, the only thing that we really have to be cognizant of is that during our community sessions with the townspeople and the butters, they were upset that if we did change it to a commercial, which we did, highway business now, it's rezoned, that something would be in there that would disturb their neighborhood. And as a neighbor, I'd probably be a little upset too if I had a busy highway business in my backyard on a residential area where a school used to be.
Well,
It's a busy business.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I've heard proposals, let me just throw this out there, kind of totally the opposite direction. What if the town were to retain the whole parcel, level the whole structure, and just make it a giant community space? You retain the structure of the field, we build, that would be, every town event would be there, we could maybe move some town monuments into there and just make that the central focus, like the Palmer Town Green. I mean, that's going 100% the other way, but then you appease the people who are neighbors and abutters. Again, it doesn't really bring us a net dollar.
Awesome piece of property there to have county, fairs like we used to.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because then we retain the field.
Yeah,
Just
on that
an
note.
idea in the other direction, you obviously lose the structure, but the
Well,
town.
on that note, I mean, to follow up with that, I mean, on that note, I also heard that, you could take down the structure and then put a Butler building up with sports things in it
That
for
as
the town
well.
too, so.
But again, that's a dollar investment.
Right,
where
that's
it's
it.
just, we'd be looking at demo and then possibly grants of green type whatever for lighting, parking.
Right.
That kind of thing. But anyway, just another idea that I've heard tossed out.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of support though from townspeople though that they don't want to see the building go. There's a lot of historical
Get it too,
value and memories.
We can
and
pass out bricks, but
I
mean, I get it. You're right, but
right,
I used to love the drive-in movie theater too
right.
in town, but
I did too.
I used to like the roller skating rink too. But
Right. I get what you're saying. I mean, but as a council, I think
it
we need
is.
to
It's
move.
sad, but, you
right,
know.
but as a council, I think we need to make a decision. I think we need to move forward because
100%
the longer
agree.
it sits, the more money it costs us.
And it's been, what, 4 years, 5 years already?
Well, we say this every month.
I know we do.
No, we do.
And,
ask Butch, he'll tell you how long it's been.
Well, again, I think you just need to like finish up what your thought process is and bring it to us so that we can approve it. And
Yeah,
I think until we see something, it's very hard to have a
Yep.
discussion as to what we're looking to
I think
do.
that it's just an opinion, would be like a work session type
Yep.
of
And the
topic.
20 people in that setting that we had where they were like, oh, we'll pay for services if you kept it town owned. That's 20 people out of 13,000.
Won't sustain
Again, I
itself.
don't feel like, for me, I don't feel like we've ever gotten what we asked for, which was an actual cost estimate of what it would take to
Rehab the building.
Rehab the building.
Right.
And I think until we can get that out there and have that discussion, and I understand it's a lot of money, but there has been no dollar amount put on that. And I think that that's very important to do, and we have not done that.
Right, and if
So-
we're talking 1.5 million to take it down,
Right.
what would 1.5 million do to upgrade the building, or at least
Probably,
get it?
Fix a couple bathrooms, I don't know.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Literally.
At
Doesn't
this-
even
I thought
cover
there
the
was-
sprinkler system, right?
There was some type of numbers in there, it was astronomical.
Right.
Yeah, but it was, I just feel like it was like, it wasn't anything, if it was like, okay, well, this might happen, but no real numbers. And that's what people asked for, and that's what we should get, and then make the decision. And, you know, if people feel that, you know, they want to maintain, you know, keep the building, then those discussions have to happen. That's a vote. That's going to be a debt exclusion to fix the building.
Right.
And then if
Right.
it doesn't pass, then, but you have to have a plan, and we don't have a plan right now.
Right,
So
I agree.
That's what needs to happen.
Another thing, if a developer wanted that, and there's a decision to keep the field, they're gonna run away from that too, because that's their parking and everything like
Could be.
that.
Right.
That thing's gonna be tough to turn over,
be.
I think.
Well, we know when we looked at the housing proposal, well, it wasn't even a proposal, but when they put the RFP together, there was very limited parking there to accommodate both the fields and the housing
Potential
development they were
residents,
looking,
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
There's
any-
like 60 parking spaces.
yeah.
Anybody else have for Counselors Roundtable?
No.
Okay, so, Mass General Law, Chapter
Wait,
13.
Reorganization?
We're going back into open session.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. I so declare. The United Public Service Employees Union, UPSEU, Local 424M, DPW/Administrative Unit, Contract 2022 to 2025. I'll take a roll call vote to enter into executive session, and then we will return to open session. When we return to open session, we will potentially take a vote on the union contract and reorganize. I don't think I'm going to make Barry sit here, so we will not be televised. Those will be the only two votes that we take when we come back into open session. So I have a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by
I'll
Jessica.
second.
Second by Bob. This is roll call. Matt?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Sorry.
Sorry, Phil.
Thank you. Good night.
I didn't even think